Tonight, the Electoral Commission Chairperson mounts strong defense of her controversial law that will make the Ghana card the sole identity document for registering voters. That debate is still underway in Parliament. We'll take you there live shortly.
Also tonight, Ghana risks international sanctions as Tema Oil Refinery takes delivery of 600,000 barrels of Russian crude procured by a private Ghanaian refinery.
In terms of Russian crude, let it be stated emphatically that Ghana is in with the international community in not doing business with Russia. Our security people, Marine Police, Navy are on alert to intercept it.
Joy News has been digging into the matter. We hear from the National Petroleum Authority that had declared the Russian cargo illegal. Also tonight, Labour Party's Peter Obi causes major upset in Abuja as results from 24 out of 36 states are announced by INEC amid protests outside the Coalition Centre. Meanwhile, 3 opposition parties, including Obi's Labour Party, PDP and ADC, have passed a vote of no confidence in the INEC Commissioner.
This election is not free and far from being fair. We also wish to declare a vote of no confidence on the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. We believe that he lacks the integrity and moral standing to continue to oversee the process.
We hear from the INEC Commissioner, which has described the calls for Professor Mahmoud's resignation as unfounded.
You want to stay with us here on Newsnight? We'll take your comments, 055-11-11997. My name is Evans Mensah.
I am MFA Pao.
And we'll start tonight in Parliament, where that heated debate is still underway regarding that controversial constitutional instrument that will make the Ghana card the sole identity document for registering voters. I want to take you to Parliament, but first let me give you some context with Kweku Asante, our parliamentary correspondent. Kweku, so this debate is still happening, and I can see that the NIA chief executive is on the floor.
Right, Evan. So the minority MPs are not so satisfied with some of the answers that are being provided by first the NIA and also the Electoral Commission. Dr. Dominic Ayini just left his seat. He was on his seat for about 3 minutes to say that Madam Jean Mensah was evading the substance of his questions and was answering questions that he had not asked. He had also said the same thing to the NIA, Professor Ken Atifa. Just right now, Isaac Adongo also got on his seat, and Ken Atifa is still on the floor explaining why their system is credible enough for the EC to rely on to register voters.
Mr. Speaker, second.
Let's go live now to Parliament and listen to the Executive Secretary of the NIA.
I have given the assurance to this Honourable House that given the resources, we will be able to print those cards in 11 days. And I've also, Mr. Speaker, as I sit here, I've received notification from the Honourable Deputy Minister for Finance, Honourable Abena Osei Asari, that the 20 million that was outstanding Ghana cedis that was outstanding has been paid. I have cross-checked with CalBank and I have received notification from CalBank that payment also has been received, meaning that the 100 million that was outstanding has been completely paid off, paving way for the conversation that will result in the release of cards for us to print the 541,529. So, Mr. Speaker, it does not follow that such a number of people will not be eligible to vote. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also speak to the issue that Honourable Mahama Ayariga raised about the shall and may, or the may and the shall. Mr. Speaker, it is the case that Section 29 of NI's Parent Act at 750, as amended, provides as follows: a national identity card may be used to facilitate. A national identity card may be used to facilitate A, the process of an application for personal information, the process of an application for personal information that has been recorded as an entry in a specified part of the register for an individual. So it is a process. The card may be required to facilitate the process of an application for information that is stored in a specified part of the register of an individual. Second, the provision of personal information to a person entitled to receive the information. What this means is that the police, for example, may ask NIA for information on a particular person. The police may ask the person for their ID card, then use that ID card to, as part of the process, to access information from NIA. And I can assure the Honourable Member of Parliament that the Ghana Police Service and the IOCO and the intelligence community have taken advantage of this law, this provision, and asked for information. When they do, they may take information about the person. They may use a person's Ghana card and say to NIA, this is the person's personal identification number. Give us information on the person. That is the main use, that is the optional use of the card as provided for under Section 29 of Act 750. When you come to LI 2111, Regulation 7 of LI 2111, what it provides is that a national identity card issued to an individual shall be used for the following transactions where identification is required. The emphasis there, Mr. Speaker, is where identification is required. So whenever you must transact, whenever you must engage in a transaction where your identification is required to be proven, then the Ghana card shall be required. That is the provision of LI 2111 passed by this Honourable House in 2012. And Mr. Speaker, there are two separate and distinct things. One is for the establishment of the identity of a person. The other is for requesting for information stored in a person. So for verification purposes, for example, a person may request for information using the Ghana card. But when it comes to identification of a person, then the Ghana card shall be required. Mr. Speaker, that is my understanding of the distinction between the two provisions. I think there was finally a question about evidence of.
Honourable Dafiam, about you've never had the opportunity. You already spoken. You've spoken. I'll give you the opportunity. You sit down. Let him continue the answering.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, there was also a question about the difference between NIA's guarantor system and Electoral Commission's guarantor system. As a chairperson of the chairman of the EC has indicated, ours is a more rigorous system. It requires that the person making the oath, guaranteeing for another person, does so before a commissioner for oaths. It was for that reason that the Chief Justice of the Republic trained over 1,300 commissioners for oaths, whom we deployed at every registration center, so that every person vouching does so before a commissioner for oaths. It enables the trust element to be established. It enables track and tracing, and if you perjure yourself, the consequences are clear. Finally, because of the vouching system, the person who is vouching must have the Ghana card already, and therefore the Ghana card of the person vouching is tied to the person for whom he or she vouches, and forever they are trackable and traceable and can always be found if you make a false vouching that someone is a Ghanaian when the person is not. In the EC system, the vouching is done by any person. It is not done by a specified set of persons. In the NIA system, it is one relative who already has the Ghana card, or two persons qualified by law through the governing board of NIA. And again, those two persons qualified by a certain elevated criteria must also have had their Ghana cards. In the EC system, that is not the arrangement. So that is why the chairman of the EC said the NIA system is more robust and it allows for this tracking and tracing, which can lead to the prosecution of persons who have falsely vouched for the identities of other persons. And the final person I want to speak to is from Honorable Anodompre, who asks whether NIA can print the cards within 11 days if given the funds. I think I've answered it loud and clear. Yes, we can. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I think there were some questions to the finance minister. He's not answered your question. Honorable Okujetu Abrafa is saying you.
Because from the slides, we only have the regional global figures, but we don't have constituency by constituency.
Yes,
for the 276.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Okujetu Abrafa is right. The Honorable Member of Parliament is right. And indeed, I promised to give that. I have it here, and I can give it. I have the. Just a second. Yeah. I have the Excel here. We can connect and I can project it. But every region and every district you want, I have it here and I can give it to you, sir. As at the 19th of February 2023. You want me to?
Yeah, Chairman, please, Chairman, we'll need your ruling so that it will be made available to us. It's germane.
No, I'm not taking any questions again.
No, Chairman, please rule. Give a direction. No, it's important. We can't leave it hanging. Let's resolve this.
Honorable Damsemapo, you are signaling that time. I'm not taking any questions.
No. Let's one thing.
You are signaling me time, isn't it?
It's very important.
You are signaling me.
Yes, so you can rule that a copy will be made available for members. That's all. Rule that members can get copies of the report that has been requested. That will be made available to members. We want your ruling that it will be made available to members
of the Excel.
Yes.
Yes, he's saying members can get copies. So.
This is very important, Mr. Chairman. I just heard the Chief Executive Officer of the NIA interpret Regulation 7, Sub-Regulation E of LI 211.
Honorable Dafiamapo, I've not given you the opportunity. The interpretation,
Mr. Speaker,
that is your understanding,
Mr. Speaker,
and that is his understanding.
No, I want to ask him a question. And the question is this: that if you interpret the law the way you have done, then over 2 million cards that you have not given to Ghanaians, can we expect those people a mandatory use of the card that you have not issued to them? Or you have not issued the card to the people? Can it be expected that the 2.something million people there will be a mandatory requirement for them to use the card, as you have interpreted in the law. So the law says issue cards. Issued. That is where the emphasis is. So stop misreading the law. Stop that.
That the copies be made available today. That the copies be available today to members.
Mr. Chairman, the deputy leader is insisting that the information given by the NIA should be availed now. I think that is impracticable. That is impracticable. In any event, as I keep saying, the rules of the House apply even in plenary. And the rules provide, again, Rule 67, 1H. A question shall not be asked, the answer to which is readily available in official publication. He's quoting from his official publication. I don't know, apply yourself to the rules and you appreciate what they are doing. And these shenanigans we see, apply yourself to the rules. But Mr. Speaker, if members need it, and the instruction, the directive is that it should be supplied. It's all well and good. But I'm just saying that this insistence is really superfluous. It's superfluous because you are required to access the official publication on their website. Who told you? Your phone is limited. Your phone is limited.
Yes, honorable member for Northtown, I think the information you requested is being read out.
So we need copies so we can analyze.
We're going to give hard copies.
All right, thank you.
Honorable members, I think some of the questions were directed to the finance minister. So you give him the opportunity to also. Honorable members, Chairperson, take your seat, please. Honorable Chairperson, take your seat. Oh. Honorable members, we are now giving the opportunity to the finance minister. Some of the questions were directed to him. So, Honorable Dara.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker. I think that the main question was about the 100 million cedis to be transferred to CalBank IMS. And that has been confirmed by the Director for NIA. We have indeed transferred the 80 million Ghana cedis, and today swift instructions for the 20 million has also been executed. So, Mr. Speaker, that has been done, that's assurance, and we'll continue to work with the program that we've agreed with CAL. Mr. Speaker, we do take elections very seriously, and as I mentioned in the last election, we actually ensured appropriate amounts were paid to the Electoral Commission to ensure that we had a successful. I will continue to do the same, and let me assure this House that all expenses related to this will be duly complied with. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, Honorable member for North Tongue, there's no further question. Please.
No, Mr. Chair, we're asking for evidence. Evidence.
Honorable members, let's now come to leadership. Leadership, do you have any concerns to raise?
Mr. Speaker.
Okay, let the leadership ask the president. Yes, I will now listen to the minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, the understanding is that we will have the first 5-5 and then we'll do a second 5-5 before the leadership speaks.
Yes, that's it.
Mr. Speaker, there are others waiting for their turn to ask their questions. There will be the need for them to be given opportunity so that they can ask their questions and this matter be cleared once and for all. Another set of 5 before the leadership speaks.
Very well. Then I don't have your list. Minority, your list. I have the majority, I don't have the minority.
He's not here. Mr. Speaker, we've given you 13 days.
It's here. Honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members. It appears time is fast spent. Will you listen to me? Honorable members, will you listen to me? So I want the questions to be straightforward. I don't want any so Honorable Erikopoku, you can begin.
Thank you very much.
But just be straightforward, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the constitutional instrument being discussed comes under Article 42. And Article 42 is very clear. It states, every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age or above of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of public elections and referenda. Mr. Speaker, from the presentations we have listened to this evening, it is clear that if the constitutional instrument is passed today, it will be an offense to this particular article because not all Ghanaians have the Ghana card. And that is the reason why you have brought the finance minister here to come and give us the assurance, inviting this house to pass a law on assurance that the right thing will be done in future. Why is it that we cannot wait until the gap is closed by NIA before the constitutional instrument is passed? That is the first question. Why? Then my second question has to do with the guarantor system. In your response to a question posed by Honorable Ayaga, you indicated that the NIA guarantor system is a robust one. Why can't the Electoral Commission deploy the same robust or even super robust one as an alternative route for those who do not have the Ghana card to also have their names on the electoral roll, so that we can bring this matter to the end? And then the last person has to do with limiting registration to the district offices. Mr. Chairman, that is a right. Voting is a right that must be exercised by every eligible Ghanaian. And so if you limit registration to the district office and the person is in the village far away from that particular office, who bears the cost of traveling from that village to that office to be able to exercise that constitutional duty? So now, if you don't have money to travel to the district office, you cannot register and participate in the voting. Is that what you're telling us? Are you monetizing the registration process?
Honorable Eric, your time is up. Yes, we will now move to Honorable Emmanuel Boa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the EC's answers to a question about the NIA's, the failure of the NIA's deadlines, where we were talking about the reliance by the Minister of Communication. This is what the EC said, that about the NIA, she cited the continuous registration and said that if you did not get it in March, you can get it at a later date. But that is exactly the fear. That's exactly the worry. I mean, what prevents the Electoral Commission? Today we know that the EC, sitting here today, has told her that they still have challenges. The Minister of Finance is here. The NIA owes $117 million. The amount they paid is $9 million. And that's a fact. That's a fact. So knowing all this problem, what is really driving us? Why don't we stick with the status quo? We get the NIA to complete the process before we deal with it. What prevents the EC from doing that? Secondly, the National Identification Authority is more robust. This is the EC boss saying this. He says that the NIA system is more robust when we were talking about the guarantor system. Because those who use the guarantor system, they swear an oath. So if that is robust and effective, what prevents the EC from adopting that system?
And that is the Deputy Minority Leader, Emmanuel Ama Kofi Boa, on the floor in Parliament. I want to take you there and speak to parliamentary correspondent, just looking ahead so we can move on to some of the major stories today. Quickly, so the debate appears to be going on. At the end of this, are we expecting some form of a decision, a vote on this CI? What exactly should we look forward to?
So, being a committee of the whole, the committee will have to generate its report. It will come to the floor as any normal report of any committee. It will be debated, it will be voted upon, and then the House will take a decision. But that decision is not a decision that can necessarily say whether or not the EC will be allowed or not to lay its CI. Because as a constitutional body, Parliament cannot dictate for it in such manner. But we know that the Speaker of Parliament has enormous powers as to whether or not to allow a constitutional body lay such a constitutional instrument on the floor of the House. And the Speaker has said it time and again that he wants to be satisfied before he will allow that CI to be laid. Of course, the majority side have said that if the Speaker purported to do that, he will be acting unconstitutionally because the EC is not subject to any direction in the performance of its responsibility. So what is going to happen is that when all these back and forth ends, as early as Thursday or Friday, the committee of the whole report will come back to the floor of the House, a debate will ensue and a vote will be taken. We do not know yet if the Speaker is now satisfied and will allow the EC to lay this CI, which is expected to mature 21 15 days. And Evans, the second point is that Parliament is expected to rise for Easter break on the 31st of March. And so 21 15 days within this is what the EC is counting on. If they are unable to do so, they would have to wait until Parliament resumes in April after the Easter break and attempt to lay it and get the 21 15 days. Not any 21 days, but 21 15 days for this to mature in time for registration to happen before the district level election scheduled for the last quarter of this year.
Quickly, thank you very much. And the debate is still on the floor of Parliament, and you can catch it live on the Joy News channel. It's also live on our social media pages on Facebook and also on YouTube as we speak right now. Edward Bauer is on the floor for the minority. We're also expecting a few more majority members who also be speaking and interrogating both the Electoral Commission chairperson and the NIA officials on the floor of Parliament. So if you want to still follow that live debate on the floor on the controversial constitutional instrument that will make the Ghana card the sole ID for registering to vote, catch it on the Joy News channel.
Don't forget the finance minister is also answering questions in Parliament. But on to some other stories now. As and when we need to go back to Parliament, we'll take you there. But Ghana is tonight facing the real possibility of international sanctions after the Tema oil refinery took delivery of 600,000 barrels of crude oil from Russia. Bloomberg first broke the story of how the vessel docked at the Tema harbor. Well, Joy News is now learning that the crude oil was procured by a private Ghanaian refinery and had only used the state-owned TOR, and that's the TOR facilities, for storage. The National Petroleum Authority had earlier declared they will not allow the vessel to dock in Ghana, insisting Ghana does not do business with Russia due to the imposition of international sanctions after Russia invaded Ukraine. We can listen to the chief executive of the NPA, Dr. Mustafa Hamid, answering a question posed by a Bloomberg reporter when the vessel was first spotted heading for Ghana.
We've actually observed from a tracking website that there's a vessel with Russian crude expected to arrive at Tema on Friday. We just wanted to check if you can confirm that that's the case and if that crude is for the Tema refinery to process.
Now, in terms of Russian crude, let it be stated emphatically that Ghana is in with the international community in not doing business with Russia. So it cannot be the case that the NPA has sanctioned the docking or berthing of a Russian vessel. It's not possible. And we have a unit in the NPA called the Planning Unit, which is under the Economic Regulation and Planning Directorate, which authorizes every vessel that berths on our shores to berth. And we are not, be assured, that going to grant permission for any Russian cargo to berth on our shore. That has to be explicit, unequivocal. And so we don't know of any. If some people are intending to bring in Russian cargo as smuggled product, our security people, marine police, navy are on alert to intercept it. And when it is so intercepted, we will inform the Ghanaian public.
And MFA Power, now we know the vessel was not intercepted, had actually now docked and has discharged the 600,000 barrels of crude into the tanks at Tor, and raises a lot of questions. Dr. Mustafa Hamid himself was emphatic that we do not do business with Russia and that they have a unit there that gives permission for all vessels to dock locally. The question to ask tonight is, did that unit you talked about, did they spot this vessel?
And what did they do about
Did they give the permission for that cargo to now dock and then discharge? Lots of questions.
Well, Maxwell Abuba joins us in studio. Let's interrogate further that Bloomberg report. Maxwell, what has Bloomberg actually been saying about this vessel carrying the 600,000 barrels of crude?
Yes, according to Bloomberg, the tanker Theseus arrived in Ghana's territorial waters on Friday, carrying about 600,000 barrels of Russian oil from a port in the Black Sea. It says, according to tanker tracking data compiled by Bloomberg, its cargo was due to be pumped into storage tanks in Tema. We are told the last signal from the vessel carrying the crude was on Sunday evening, by which time unloading had not begun. The crude, we are told, will be stored in tanks at the Tema oil refinery. People who have information about the matter told Bloomberg. We are told the Tema oil refinery didn't respond to requests for comment. And Bloomberg says when the tanker was en route to Ghana, the CEO of Ghana's National Petroleum Authority, we've just been hearing from Mustafa Hamid, saying that it will be blocked. But we're told that did not happen. Then MPA didn't respond to multiple requests for comment after it reached our territorial waters. Now, Bloomberg says the shipment to Tema would be the first time Russian oil has been delivered to a West African country since at least October 2018.
Okay, so Bloomberg has also been explaining why Russia oil will want its crude here in Ghana. What exactly did it say?
Well, it says Russia is under pressure to sustain its oil revenue after the Group of Seven and the European Union imposed punishing sanctions on the country's energy industry. Almost all European Union companies are prohibited from buying Russian crude and petroleum products or providing important services such as insurance to nations that buy such exports above a capped price. It goes on to say that in December, Russia's petroleum revenues dropped nearly 20% from the previous month after the price cap triggered big discounts on the nation's crude, according to the International Energy Agency. We are told that the development suggests that traders could be scouring the market for new buyers of Russian barrels after the European Union stopped almost all seaborne imports from the country in December. The bloc's measure made Moscow hugely reliant on Chinese and Indian purchases. It says after sanctions were imposed on Russia, the nation directed crude exports towards China and then India, upending global oil flows and then the maritime industry. Now, with Europe previously having been by far the largest market for Russian oil, that narrowed the nation's pool of buyers dramatically. It also meant the barrels had to be discounted at the point of export to compensate for relatively high delivery costs.
Okay, thank you very much, Maxwell. And Evans, you've been leading the Energy and Oil and Gas Desk, digging further into this. What more have we picked up on this deal?
I mean, so my curiosity was, okay, so who in Ghana procure this particular oil? And as Bloomberg has been saying, internationally, Russian oil, if you can procure, well, you get it cheaper because obviously they're struggling to sell it and people aren't taking because of the sanctions. I discovered, and speaking to sources in the industry, that is a privately owned refinery in the Greater Accra region, very well established, way back in 2014, very well established, that procured this crude, and they have a contract, I understand, with the Tema Oil Refinery to store their crude there, and so this is one consignment that they had procured. The only reason why this is raising eyebrows, obviously, because it's, as Bloomberg has reported, it is Russian crude, and so they've done this before with Tor. This is a significant amount of crude, 600,000 barrels. To put that in context, Ghana currently produces about 140,000 barrels a day. So the crude that this private company procured is more than 4 times what the entire country, Talo, ENI, etc., produces a day. So that's quite significant. And we are withholding the company's name because we tried to reach out to them, and we haven't succeeded. And if you check its management, many of the top management, the chair and the senior officers, all seem to have Eastern European names. They could possibly be Russians themselves, but Eastern European names as well. And so well established. But as far as Tor is concerned, Tor received a notice. There was a notice to the Tor operators, the staff that operate the facility, and the managers, that this cargo was coming in. This was last week. As we speak, it's docked and has discharged into the Tor tanks, we understand. And we got a copy of the notice, the internal notice that was circulated, alerting the staff that the cargo was coming, and they were to store them in the Tor tanks 51, 54 and 71, and these are the tags for the Tor tanks there. In cubic meters, we're talking about 6,500 of crude oil will be used to displace, and this is according to the notice, to displace the pipeline content of water and mixture of crude oil into G5. G51 is one of the tanks, and we'll also receive 15,000 metric tons of crude oil into. So they divided it into bits into another tank. The tank 71 will use a ullage of about 65,000 metric tons that will also receive the rest of the cargo, and then QC has gone on board for sampling. So which means that they possibly had an officer in charge of sampling before the product is discharged that had gone on board the vessel. So as of last week, right? So the vessel actually docked, and again, it raises questions about the MPA's own assertions that they were allowed it to dock. An officer went on board from Tama Oil Refinery and did a sampling of the product, but I find that the last note there in this internal notice alerting the staff that the product was coming interesting, because it says that, quote, please, we didn't have the information early. That's why we didn't discuss it at the production meeting. So there was a production meeting. Every day they do production meetings to see how much product is coming in and from where. Apparently this didn't come up at that meeting, and the information came to them at possibly the last minute. And so, they have to kick into gear to try and receive the product. But as we speak tonight, that product has been discharged and it's in the tank. So what we understand is this private refinery will refine the product in Ghana, the 600,000 crude, and possibly sell it on the Ghanaian market as well. So that another thing that, of course, the authorities, the MP in particular, will have a lot of questions. The energy ministry,
because
because of the sanctions.
I'm sure you've been finding out how is the case that 600,000 barrels of crude will be stored at Tor and government will not be aware. What exactly have you been able to find?
I mean, that's another question that a lot of people I've been speaking to raise as well. I mean, the 600,000 barrels of crude is quite substantial, considering we produce 840,000 barrels there about a day. Somebody should have known about this, and if the sound replay there of Mustafa Hamid himself was very clear that they have a unit that monitors and grants permits for cargoes to arrive, and so somebody either in government or a state entity like MPA taxed with that responsibility should have that information. And the questions are, did they know the origin of this product, and did they know that it's from Russia? Mustafa Hamid confesses and is very clear that Ghana, we do not do business with Russia, and so there's no way we'll allow this vessel. In fact, at the point he was asking the Marine Police to also step in, because if it's a smuggled product, then they would have to seize it, impound, and possibly prosecute. But if it is coming in and we know, then we stop it and not allow it to come in. And so we need to ask questions about why did they allow it to come in. Now there are real possibilities that we may face sanctions.
Well, that's the bigger concern because of the ban on Russian oil. So what then does it mean for Ghana? You're talking about these sanctions. How severe are these sanctions? I'm sure we've been checking on that, but we'll talk about it subsequently on this. But my colleague...
in fact, on that question, we've been digging into that also, because that's a key question here. And Kofi, there's a lot of material as far as from the United States of America leading this imposition of sanctions, both at the UN and elsewhere, when it comes to African countries specifically buying or dealing in Russian crude or taking delivery of same.
So Linda Thomas Greenfield, U.S. ambassador to the UN, in August 2022, issued a strong warning to African countries to stay away from importing oil from Russia. She said, according to her, African countries are free to buy grains from Russia, but could face consequences if they trade in U.S. sanctioned commodities such as oil from Russia. And I quote, "We caution countries not to break those sanctions, because if they do, then they stand the chance of having actions taken against them."
Okay, and so that's the U.S.'s official diplomat to the
Absolutely.
UN warning African countries don't do business with Russia when it comes to oil. And to put it in context, just last week, Ghana again voted against Russia at the United Nations when it came to asking Russia to pull out of Ukraine, and the president has been very vociferous about that particular matter, that Ghana is completely against Russia in this matter, and that's one of the key things that raises a lot of eyebrows. Bloomberg itself reports that it's possibly the first time Russian crude is coming to the shores of West Africa since the war started. So that tells you a lot. Let's bring in industry. Persing used to be the chief executive of the bulk oil distributors. Senor Hossi joins us on the line. Mr. Hossi, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. What do you make of this development?
Well, it's quite interesting, but I think we have to get the set of records quite straight. We do business directly and indirectly with Russia. We have just bought cargo from the Tasco, which is a Russian-owned oil company. They were good for oil transactions related to Boss. I think Boss itself should come and declare that. So it's been done. But, I think that's what supposedly coming from UAE. But we all know how the industry works, so we cannot claim not to know that there's something that happens. But what buying crude from Russia for starters is not illegal. The sanctions that are at least known to industry as said is that there are price caps. The sanctions are not to say that you can't buy from Russia. It is for the EU companies not to receive them by sea. But for everybody else, only price caps exist. And I think if I recall, that should be about $60 price cap. That creates an opportunity for players this way, if the logistics will make sense for it. The other thing you want to look at in this is the volume and who is buying. The refinery in question will require about 4 months to really process this, which is not very typical. And it would be a good reason why a regulator would want to keep a close eye on that particular activity. Are we going to be looking at cases where this is flipped for other purposes or use it as a way to rebrand the cargo for better premiums elsewhere? These are the things you want to make sure you avoid. Before there's a geopolitical situation, we all know what's going on. While you are allowed to deal with Russia, in these times that you are looking for money and looking for debt forgiveness, you need to be very sensitive about how you manage your trading activities. There's a reason in a commercial case to actually buy Russian oil, whether product or crude, because they are cheaper. No two ways about that because of the sanctions. But there's also a political cost and an economic cost. So you may be cutting your nose to spite your face. And these are decisions that policymakers would have to consider carefully. And I pray that government has proper policy coordination in this conversation. Unfortunately, what we have seen in time past is that very little policy coordination. So you have the energy sector maybe doing something, the Ministry of Finance is doing something, and they may be at variance as far as object or coordinator object is concerned, and Ghana loses. So we need to be careful.
And so you made a point at the beginning, and because you're an industry person, you know what you're talking about. So when you hear the chief executive of MPA categorically say at a public function that if this is true, we will stop it, and Ghana, we simply do not do business with Russia.
What I heard my brother Hamid say was that smuggled is the word I heard him use.
No, so let's put it in context.
It's a smuggled cargo.
No, so let's put that in context. The Bloomberg asked the question about this particular one, and he says at the beginning, we don't do business. So if that's the case, we won't allow it to dock. But then he goes ahead to say, if it is smuggled, then the police will deal with it. So they are in two parts. The first part, he said, if it is coming, then we'll allow it. I mean, and that is important. In fact, that's the starting point of this story. That's why this story becomes important.
Okay, so a few things. Well, I can't hold me for Ami, but I know the industry. I know his integrity, and maybe from that perspective, I may be sharing a perspective. One, smuggled is clear, but as if we say we don't do business with Russia on a G2G basis, there's no business currently with Russia, as in government-to-government basis. But market-to-market basis, there is business directly or indirectly with Russia because we trade with one of the major oil companies, Litasco. Boss is actually buying from Litasco. That does not necessarily mean that cargo is coming from Russia. For the large cargoes, I think they reported it coming from UAE. But UAE is known to be a good transshipment place to really rebrand a lot of cargoes. But that's not necessarily Hamid's job. Once they can validate that something is illegitimate, he's going to have to take action. But as a country, we surely do, as a market, we surely trade with Russian entities like Litasco.
Yeah, I mean, that point is very, very interesting indeed. And I've without some doubt, this says the chief executive again making that point to the Bloomberg question.
We've actually observed from a tracking website that there's a vessel with Russian crude expected to arrive at Tema on Friday. We just wanted to check if you can confirm that that's the case, and if that crude is for the Tema refinery to process.
Now, in terms of Russian crude, let it be stated emphatically that Ghana is in with the international community in not doing business with Russia. So it cannot be the case that the NPA has sanctioned the docking or berthing of a Russian vessel. It's not possible. And we have a unit in the NPA called the Planning Unit, which is under the Economic Regulation and Planning Directorate, which authorizes every vessel that berths on our shores to berth. And we are not, be assured, that going to grant permission for any Russian cargo to berth on our shore. That has to be explicit, unequivocal. And so we don't know of any. If some people are intending to bring in Russian cargo as smuggled product, our security people, marine police, navy are on alert to intercept it. And when it is so intercepted, we will inform the Ghanaian public.
Senor, so that's it, just for clarity.
That's fair. One, I am not aware of any industry directive that nobody should buy or import any product that is Russian related whatsoever. If government has taken that decision, that policy directive needs to be shared with industry. Now, the people who have imported this particular product are authorized to import the product. It doesn't make the product illegal. But if for any other geopolitical reason, government wants to have a policy position, it has to communicate that.
Yeah.
It hasn't. So nothing illegal for starters.
That happened. Senor, thank you very much. And very quickly, I want to bring in industry analyst with the Institute of Energy Securities, Nana Amoisi. Ms. Amoisi, you've been following this very closely. Give me your quick thoughts.
Thanks for having me, Ivan. Good evening to your co-host and Ghanaians. This are the indications we have seen. Yes, of course, there is a vessel from Russia, and it's in Ghana, carrying close to 80,000 metric tons of crude oil. That translates into about 600,000 barrels. It is designated for that ton oil. I can put on authority that this is the recipient of this cargo. What I can also say is that this cargo is still at Anchorage. And I repeat, it's still at Anchorage. It has not discharged. In fact, the vessel has not left, not even at the jetty or the conventional mooring system, the single point mooring system, and let alone discharge into Thomas. So the crude oil is still aboard the empty capsules. That is what I can say as one. Number two, it is true that the crude oil is designated for tall tanks. And so Platon decided to choose tall as a storage facility. They are yet to take samples. They are yet to do quantity survey and to discharge. But on the side of Tor is yet to receive clearance from the National Petroleum Authority to receive this cargo into the tank. This is what I can establish.
Okay.
Listeners.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you very much for that insight. And this is a story that we'll keep following how it develops because it's docked on our shores. MF.
Well, there will be more also on myjoyonline.com on this. But let's head to Nigeria just quickly before we wrap up tonight's edition of Newsnight. And Peter Obi, presidential candidate for the opposition Labour Party, has won the capital Abuja in the landslide victory. So he gained 281,717 votes compared to 90,902 won by his nearest rival Bola Tinubu of the ruling APC. So the PDP's Atiku Abubakar also took 74,194 votes. Ms. Obi is popular with young voters in urban centers and has also won Lagos State. Earlier, his party, the Labour Party, together with the PDP's Democratic Party and ADC, called for a fresh election, alleging irregularities. Well, they insisted that the results had been manipulated and they wanted a new election to be organized. Julius Abure is chairman of the Labour Party.
This election is not free and far from being fair or transparent. There's ongoing extensive cancellation of results all over the country, especially in the areas of strength of opposition parties, show up the numbers of the ruling APC. The total number of cancellations to date nationwide has, in any event, rendered the elections income, and we have totally lost faith in the entire process. People's Democratic Party, Labour Party, ADC, and all other allied parties shall not be part of the process currently going on at the national elections. And we demand that this sham of an election should be immediately cancelled. We also call for a fresh election to be carried out within the window allowed by the Electoral Act and in accordance with the laid down INEC procedure.
Well, they passed a vote of no confidence in an INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. Well, the INEC chair has been responding to this. That's the INEC itself, and they've described the calls for Professor Mahmoud's resignation as unfounded. But we can also hear from the vice presidential candidate of the PDP, Ifeanyi Okawo, and his Labour Party counterpart, Dati Baba Ahmed, also questioning the results.
Definitions. Democracy does not merely mean that you have 3 arms of government. That is not democracy. The executive must be truly elected. If the government is not truly genuinely elected, you do have a constitutional problem. Now we are witnessing the fact that the next government is going to be built on outright illegality. This illegality has been so eloquently presented by my brother Governor Okowa. The sections have been clearly spelled out. Attention of the whole world has been drawn to this. What INEC has accelerated itself to doing is to put itself in a trance to promote illegality and thereafter call for the courts to resolve the illegality.
Well, and the protests are on outside the National Coalition
Center. So go to court from INEC.
Yes.
We had that in 2020 in Ghana, right?
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. The EC says go to court. And then everybody was telling NDC go to court. And eventually they went to court. Yeah.
We'll see how this pans out. But Kofi has been monitoring events in terms of real times, results. We have 24 out of 36 states officially.
Absolutely.
What do we know? Are we going to a runoff?
Well, so Bola Tinubu is increasing in total number of votes, but decreasing in the percentage. So currently he's leading, but with 38.96%. Then we have Atiku Abubakar, also second with 30.87%. Then there is Rabiu, who is actually having 7.3%, and Peter Obi third with 20.11%.
Interesting. So Peter Obi got the Plateau State. They got 466,000, and we know Atiku Abubakar is also winning there.
So 9 states out of the 24 right now.
Interesting. And Bayelsa State also going for Atiku, and Rabiu is also getting a lot. But we know that the INEC will be back at 9 p.m. Nigeria time for more results. At a go, they give 15 states, and they've taken that 2-hour break, and they'll be back at 9 p.m. Then we'll get more. You've been interacting with Chukwuemeka Eze of One Up on PM Express last night, and they've been cautioning INEC against heightening the tension in Nigeria. Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president, also we heard him allege fraud in the election, saying it's been doctored and manipulated. There's been a response from the federal government admonishing him not to truncate the 2023 general elections with his inciting, self-serving and provocative statement. That's a statement from the Ministry of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed. We're bringing you all the latest when it comes to Nigerian elections on myjoyonline.com. That's how we wrap up tonight's edition of News Night. The Geek Squad app. And Evans, I'm told you're a guest on the Geek Squad tonight.
I actually don't know where but I know they're talking about something.
They're talking about elections.
Elections,
it has to be elections.
And social media.
Well, that's why when it comes to technology. I'm surprised.
But I'll say something.
You want to stay for the
No,
Geek
you
Squad
want to
then?
stay because today I'm going to do the Geek Squad,
We'll see how it
analyzing the
goes.
tech, join me.